Pants? Oh, pamphlets. I thought you said, do you have pants on? I'm like, yeah, whole time.
I was going to mention that to you later.
It's one of my nightmares. He showed up to preach in his underwear. Yeah. We're going to cover 1st and 2nd Kings today, okay? So we're going to move at a very, very fast rate. Last week we took a look at, the last 2 weeks we've been looking at 1st and 2nd Samuel, which brought the kingdom of God together. We had David and Solomon seen in both of those things. The kingdom of God, or Israel, becomes a united kingdom. And now, just like that fast, we're going to go into 1st and 2nd Kings, and we're going to see the kingdom of God fall apart. And we're going to see the reason why Israel is going to go into captivity. We're going to see you guys understand that when we say, using the term Israel is I don't want to say it's weird. It fits the whole nation for a period of time. Okay, and then it splits to being Israel and Judah. Okay, so you understand that. It's kind of like, we have the Mason-Dixon line in the United States. Everything north of that, we're called the Yankees, and everything south of that, they're called a lot of different things, okay? That's kind of the way it works. It's, the best illustration I guess I can come up with right now is that at one point in time, Israel was a united nation, and then they are going to fall apart, become dislocated, and in that dislocation, you will have two groups. The northern half, which will be identified as Israel, the southern half, which is called Judah. But sometimes, even after that, they describe Judah as Israel. So it's tricky in the sense that you just got to remember that. If you do that, you wouldn't have any problem. If you're raised with it, you wouldn't have any problem. You would say, yeah, I don't understand when they talk about, and my grandmother grew up in the hills of Kentucky, and I mean hills of Kentucky. My grandfather had to cross what they called a bridge at that time, and it was just a downed tree, right? That's how far in the south she lived, and he had to cross the bridge to bring his wife home for their honeymoon, right? So when I say to you that in the South, we call those folks hillbillies, right? That's my family. I get to say that, right? I get to use that term. And so that's kind of how Israel was, is they had those people who they looked at and said, well, they're not really God's people, and that was primarily the north. So, wow. Let's go rapidly. This has got to be like, we only have so much time. So we're going to take a look at the reign of Solomon, which is verses 1 through 11. It's during this time, Solomon gets handed from his father David the kingdom of Israel. Okay? And Solomon is going to have the same problem that his dad did. Solomon is not going to listen to God in the sense that he liked women. Well, not more than he should have. He allowed his appreciation for women to affect him in negative ways. Okay? And because of that, he's going to be like his dad. I believe he has nearly 1,000, between wives and concubines, he has nearly 1,000 women in his court. Most of these women, a lot of these women are coming from foreign nations. And Solomon falls either in love or in lust with them so much that he allows their religious practices to contaminate and infect the nation of Israel. And because of that, the kingdom won't stay united. Okay, so this is chapters 1 through 11, which is the reign of Solomon. You have in chapters 1 through 2, you're going to read that Solomon succeeds David, and everybody knows that. It's his son. In verse 3 and 4, we read, "Do what the Lord your God commands and follow his teachings. Obey everything written in the law of Moses. Then you will be a success no matter what you do or where you go. You and your descendants must always faithfully obey the Lord." And the problem is that Solomon knew he was supposed to do that, but he didn't do that. Matter of fact, he even went back and got horses from Egypt, something that he was told never to do. So Solomon is now on the throne of his father David. Now the wonderful thing about this, and one of the most perplexing things about this, is in 3 through 4. I give you a little bit of art from the Bible Project. A lot of people have trouble with this. I have a lot of friends who say to me that they hate the way that David ended his life, because David ends for the death or the murder of his enemies. And, you have a lot of Old Testament people that when they die, that's what they say. And it's like, as Christians, we just hate that. And guys, if we were Old Testament leaders who were called to be faithful to the covenant that God had given us, this is probably what you would pray for at the end of your life, because Israel is not just a spiritual entity, it is a political entity. And that political entity was commanded or charged with the responsibility of removing from the nation anybody who would set themselves up against the will of God or the kingdom of God. So when David or anybody else in the Old Testament, not anybody else, when David comes to the end of his life where he is trying to establish the kingdom and make sure that the kingdom goes well, or any king does, for that matter, who is a godly king, and they're looking to eradicate the enemies that are out there, it's not supposed to be seen so much as a personal thing as it is a political thing. War has been established, and that war is between anybody who would not allow God's kingdom to be established in this world. And so David is saying at the end of his life to Solomon, please make sure that the kingdom of God moves forward, which is necessary in a political setting sometimes to kill your opponents. This doesn't mean that David has a bad heart. So, let's move on. I'm done with that. Now, you can disagree with me. I have friends who disagree with me on that. I tell them that just get used to being wrong then, because you're wrong. Okay, in 3 and 4, Solomon asks for wisdom. This is a great thing, and I am so tickled that Solomon does this, because Solomon is the wisest man who ever lived. Through this wisdom, he is going to make Israel more prosperous than it has ever been materially. It will be the beginning of the degradation spiritually. Okay? It is so hard for me, not hard, it is so scary for me to see a man who has so much wisdom in knowing how to deal with situations and how to build a nation, but in his own personal life, that wisdom seems to be vacant. And anytime there's a vacancy, people, the world hates vacancy. And it rushes in with everything that it's got. And the world rushed in into Solomon.